Today was the first of the two-a-day hearings in the impeachment proceedings. I will just say, as a personal observation, although nobody cares what I think about this, I will just observe personally that 2 hearings in one day is one too many hearings in one day. It's really hard to absorb information after the first intense 6 hours. Going for another intense 5 or 6 or 7 hours after that first one, it's like adding 5 more courses to what was already a gigantic 5-course meal. Nobody's going to eat the whole thing, and if they do, they'll regret it and they'll never eat again. I don't know if they're going to have to stick to these 2-a-day things. They're planning on doing at least a couple more of these, but it's a bad idea. Just do 1 a day. It's all right. Thanksgiving is coming. We can work through the holiday. Anyway, to be fair, for the Republicans who are trying to do their best in the hearings to mount a defense of the president against this impeachment, I am sure that the Republicans didn't mind the 2-a-day thing today. I'm sure they were very excited about getting their witnesses out there, these witnesses that they had insisted on hearing from. But today proved it more than anything, that it doesn't really matter what you're hoping to get out of these witnesses. Everybody who has been called in the impeachment proceedings thus far is either a Republican appointee or a nonpartisan career person or some combination thereof. It doesn't matter. It's not making a difference because they're all fact witnesses and they're all describing what they saw of the facts of the president's behavior. And so, yeah, they're all fleshing out different parts of the story, but it's one singular story about what the president did and what was wrong with it.
I found the July 25th phone call unusual because, in contrast to other presidential calls I had observed, it involved discussion of what appeared to be a domestic political matter.
Ms. Williams, you heard the call with your own ears, right?
Yes, sir.
Not secondhand, not hearsay. You heard the president speak. You heard his voice on the call.
Correct.
And your conclusion was what he said about investigating the Bidens was, your words, unusual and inappropriate, I believe. Am I right?
That was my testimony.
And Mr. Vindman, you were treated to a July 10th meeting in the White House where you heard Ambassador Sondland raise investigations, conditioning a White House meeting on that, investigations that you thought were unduly political. I believe that's how you described them. And you went to NSC Council and you reported it, right?
Correct.
And then later, you too were on the White House call, am I right? You heard it with your own ears.
Correct.
Not secondhand, not from somebody else, not hearsay, right?
Correct.
You heard the president's voice on the call.
I did.
And you heard him raise that subject again that Ambassador Sondland had raised before about investigating the Bidens, right?
I did.
And I want to ask you, when you heard him say that, what was the first thought that went through your mind?
Frankly, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was probably an element of shock that maybe in certain regards my worst fear of how our Ukraine policy could play out was playing out, and how this was likely to have significant implications for U.S. national security.
And you went immediately and you reported it, didn't you?
I did.
Why?
Because that was my duty.
Now, are you aware of any credible allegations or evidence to support this notion that Vice President Biden did something wrong or against U.S. policy with regard to Ukraine?
I am not.
Ms. Williams, are you familiar with any credible evidence to support this theory against Vice President Biden?
No, I'm not.
Colonel Vindman, you were asked by the Minority Counsel about the president's words in the July 25th call and whether the president's words were ambiguous. Was there any ambiguity about the president's use of the word Biden?
There was not.
It was pretty clear that the president wanted Zelensky to commit to investigating the Bidens, was it not?
That is correct.
That is one of the favors that you thought should be properly characterized as a demand?
That is correct.
So just to summarize, in this July 25th call between the presidents of the United States and Ukraine, President Trump demanded a favor of President Zelensky to conduct investigations that both of you acknowledge were for President Trump's political interest, not the national interest, and in return for his promise of a much-desired White House meeting for President Zelensky. Colonel Vindman, is that an accurate summary of the excerpts that we just looked at?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Just to summarize, yes, yes. It turns out it doesn't matter if they are the witnesses who the Republicans specifically want or the witnesses who the Democrats want. All these witnesses, they're all nonpartisan military officers or career foreign service officers or career national security professionals or even, yes, Republican appointees, Trump appointees. But regardless, they are all telling the same story. They are all fact witnesses to the same behavior by the president for which the president is being impeached. And we're going to talk more in just a few minutes about the remarkable testimony of Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman today and the attacks on him from the Republican side, which were sort of mind-boggling. I feel like that's almost a separate matter from the core factual issues of the impeachment proceedings. But it was kind of amazing when he said on camera to his dad, "Dad, don't worry, Dad. You made the right decision by emigrating with us to this country and raising us here as Americans. They won't hurt me for telling the truth here. I'll be fine." I mean, it was just gutting. I don't know if you were able to see the hearings live. We will play that moment for you if you haven't seen it. You should see it. We're also going to talk with one of the people who was in the room at that moment to talk about that and its importance.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.